If you got nowhere to go, watch the Pocket Horror Show. Pocket Horror Show. Pocket Horror Show. Hey, Mom, close the door. All right, I'm your Pocketman twin Wiesel, and this is
Eddie Horror.
And we are the Pocket Horror Show, coming at you live from parts unknown Studio Syndicate, yo. And we're a channel talking about classic wrestling, black t-shirts, beer. We're gonna
discuss our top 5 favorite matches. Now, our primary focus of this is to focus on Attitude Era and before. Now, we will talk about kind of post-2000, but that's around the time I stopped following wrestling.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I still watch it now and again. Actually, in college, I think 2000, 2004 was where I kind of fell off. But, still some great stuff. And with YouTube, we can just watch it all the time. So, do you want to get going?
Let's go for it.
All right. So, top 5 most memorable matches from the Attitude Era-ish and before. My top 5, number 5 is Jake the Snake Roberts versus Rick the Martyr Martel in WrestleMania 7. They had a blindfold match. I don't know if you remember that whole gimmick and storyline.
I was lucky enough as a kid to be at WrestleMania 7, actually.
No.
At the LA Sports Arena. And, we had what's known as the Bob Uecker seats. But during that match, I go, man, that's crazy, blindfold. And yeah, the story was, didn't Rick Martel spray his arrogance cologne, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, somehow there was, that was a storyline. They got into a feud, and he had his arrogance cologne, he sprayed it in his face. And for weeks, he was like blind. It really stuck with me, because I think that I saw it on Superstars. And I didn't have cable, so that's why that really stood out to me. I didn't know you went to WrestleMania 7.
Yeah, I was a kid. I think I was like 8 or 9 years old.
All right, how was it live, the match?
It was great. I was lucky enough that my dad would take my brother and I every blue moon to the house shows. And it was always at the sports arena. And we saw WrestleMania there. And not that it was the same by any means, but it was just seeing how much this big event was different than the house shows. I had a blast. I will never forget, not to get off topic of your match, but the whole Macho Man versus Ultimate Warrior when Miss Elizabeth came down, the whole Sergeant Slaughter and Hulk Hogan thing. I can't forget that. But that match did stand out because actually Jake the Snake is one of my favorite wrestlers. So.
That is unbelievable. I begged my parents to take me to, Mom, please, wrestling's coming to town. I love it. I gotta go. Begged them, and they wouldn't even care. They didn't even say nothing, and I would cry. Cry.
Man.
I was 31 years old.
Oh wow.
But how about, what's your top 5, Ed?
Well, my number 5 starts off with Ultimate Warrior versus Honky Tonk Man. Now, the way I look at this list is what matches had a profound impact on not just the WWF, but the industry as a whole. For me, now it wasn't the premiere of the Ultimate Warrior.
Now that was SummerSlam 88?
88. SummerSlam 88, where the Honky Tonk Man was looking for an opponent and no one could come out. Then you hear the Ultimate Warrior music and the fans went nuts. They went incredibly nuts. The match lasted, I think, less than 2 minutes.
Now, he had a good theme song.
A great theme song, which is a topic for another day. But he went in, did his thing, became Intercontinental Champion, and never looked back. That was really the spawning of the Ultimate Warrior era.
Now, wasn't that like a 2-second match or something like that?
It was definitely a short match. For sure, to 2 minutes. I don't have it in front of me right now, but definitely a short match, and but still memorable. One fans will never forget.
Is that the one where Honky Tonk said, like, I'll wrestle anybody and everyone?
Yeah,
and okay,
that's the one.
That's right. All right. That's a good one. Well, my number 4 on the list of greatest matches of all time. And to me, like, it's just like Eddie's, whatever I felt was memorable. Not so much what changed the industry. It might have, but, it's just what I liked. My number 4 was Warrior v. Hogan, WrestleMania 6. Now, to me, that was kind of the end of the rock and wrestling era with Hogan and Stand Back and Girls and Cars. And Ultimate Warrior was being pushed to be the new face. Another cool thing about that match is that neither of them had any kind of wrestling skill. I don't think they knew a wrist lock from a wristwatch, to be honest with you.
I think, looking back as kids, we're like, oh my God, that was so great, and loving the match. Now we love the match for its comedic factor. Yeah, you're right. The actual wrestling there was horrible, but entertaining.
They were the big personality, the leg drop. How is that? How is that a move? but whatever. A finishing move. So that was my number 4. Eddie?
My number 4 happened in the early 2000s, and for me, it's Taz versus Mike Awesome. Now, the only video available for this match is somewhere on YouTube.
So was that like a house show, like a
kind of like a house show? What it was kind of when WCW, WWF, and ECW were at each other, right before the merger of all 3 companies. And what happened was a lot of wrestlers from ECW from ECW were leaving for the bigger contracts, WWF and WCW. Mike Awesome was one of those who left to WCW, and he was the champion of ECW at the time.
Well, that's why I don't remember him. So I didn't really follow WCW.
What WCW wanted him to do, a la Alundra Blaze a few years before, was dump the ECW championship in the trash can.
Another guy I never heard of.
Actually, she was the women's champion.
Girl I never heard of.
Yeah. And of course, ECW threatened to sue and whatnot. So they made a deal that Mike Awesome, although he was a WCW wrestler at that point by contract, was to fight one more match in ECW and lose the belt. Who did he lose to? Taz. Taz had signed with the WWE at that time. WWE and ECW's... Huh?
It was E already? WWE? Or WWF?
Or F, sorry. WWF. WWF and ECW were, they would help each other out in a way. There's some rumor, and this is for another day, that Vince McMahon bankrolled ECW. But anyway, that's a different story for a different day. Sorry. So yeah, that to me, as a fan of all 3 organizations, seeing what you would never see, that was probably the only true match between a current WCW wrestler and a WWF wrestler. Now, we're not talking after the merger when they still say, oh, WCW's on their own. No, we're talking a true WCW and WWE wrestler. So to me, that had a big impact.
Now, I only remember Taz really as an announcer. I know he wrestled, but I remember mostly as an announcer. Maybe we'll get to that top 5 one day, top 5 announcers. And how he looked like our friend Willie Mena. That's what I remember most about that. But
yeah,
but he was pretty good. But all right, my number 3, it's got to be one of the greatest matches that I've seen wrestle-wise. I mean, skill-wise. These guys, one of them was actual true champion decorated wrestler. Olympic wrestler, gold medal. Great theme song. The other guy, he came from Big Money, Silver Spoon, but he put his body on the line, still putting his body on the line. I think the last WrestleMania, he fell off some cage or something.
WrestleMania 32 a few days ago.
Yeah, and this is the first, this match, first time I saw him really wrestle and make his name and try to prove himself in the ring, not just to be a rich man's son, and I'm talking about Kurt Angle v. Shane McMahon, King of the Ring 2001.
Yeah, I mean, the most memorable thing from there is Shane being thrown into the backdrop and breaking the glass.
And 7 suplexes.
Yeah, that's...
I heard it was supposed to break the first time.
Yeah, no, you're right. It was supposed to break, and it didn't break, so they kept doing it.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, that was a lot of drama, a lot of action, and still, it grasped your attention. You had to see the match to see what the outcome was going to be.
It really... I think he fell off something, too. He was, up on not in the ring yet, but he was on top of he fell on.
Yeah.
It was incredible. I don't know, Shane McMahon. He is he's a madman. He's an animal.
My number 3, Undertaker versus Mick Foley, Hell in Cell '98. The one memorable moment, Undertaker made Mick Foley famous. Threw him off the top of the Hell in a Cell cage onto the announce table. A moment that I think you ask any wrestling fan, top 10 moments, that's got to be in there for at least most people. The impact that had, the reaction it had, the pop it had, the concern whether Mick Foley was alive or not. You thinking of it, oh, this might be real, Who would do that? Right?
I thought, was it an accident or, did he slip? I mean, who would think, hey, you know what, throw me off this damn 25-foot. And, to be honest with you, I don't think I know anyone who hasn't seen that pay-per-view match. Or at least...
Or is that moment.
That moment, whether they saw it on YouTube later or on video or whatever it is. But I know everyone I know remembers that match whenever we talk about it. So that is a great number 3.
Yeah, 3.
All right. So my number 2 is, I think, the battle of 2 icons. And I don't know if it actually ushered in a new era because they were both way, way past their prime.
Well, The Rock was on the tail end of his prime, but why don't you tell them what match it was?
So it was actually WrestleMania 18 when Hulk Hogan came back with NWO and faced the biggest wrestler at the time, the pie-eating, jabroni-beating, trailblazing eyebrow raising, all around, smack it down, The Rock.
And I remember leading up to this match, they build it. What would happen if Muhammad Ali in his prime fought Mike Tyson in his prime? What would happen if these athletes compete against these athletes in their prime? And that's how they build it.
Well, Hogan was not in his prime.
Oh, definitely not. Definitely not. And again, The Rock, not that he was on his tail end, but he had his better days a few years before him.
Yeah.
So...
absolutely, and that's the one where Hulk Hogan turned to a good guy. I remember that. Once he came in as a bad guy, Hollywood Hogan, everyone hated him, and then they turned on him, and it's one of those matches where like, you don't know if it's real or not. Like, did they really turn? So that's my number 2.
Speaking of not knowing if it's real or not, my number 2 is Hitman, Bret the Hitman Hart versus Shawn Michaels, the infamous Montreal Screwjob. So what happened? The backstory behind that. Hitman did not want to lose the belt. His contract was coming up with the WWF, and everyone knew he was going to go to WCW.
Now, this is 97?
97. Survivor Series 97. And so he didn't want to lose the belt. Vince McMahon supposedly had told him, hey, I'll let you go out as a champion. The next day on Raw, you just vacate the belt, and he'll move on. Well.
And was that kayfabe? I mean, that's what we want. That's what everyone wants to know.
I don't know.
I
don't know. It's, as a fan, it gave me insight in a way like, wow, maybe not even the storylines are fake. Maybe because, okay, you knew that, like, as a fan, I knew Hitman was leaving. At least I had heard, because the internet wasn't really big at the time. At least not how it is today.
No, what was it, 97?
97, yeah. So when that happened, I remember seeing it, not live, but I had seen it, later on video cassette, and thinking, wow, Hitman didn't tap out, and them talking about it on Raw and this and that, and seeing what happened as a fan. No matter what the TV said, Hitman gave up. That was not the case. Clearly, the Hitman never tapped out. Vince McMahon was at ringside, which he normally never was, which made it a bit suspicious, which turns out wasn't even part of the storyline. He really shouldn't have been there, and he was. So that, to me, had a big impact. It gave wrestling more of a real face in the sense that it was very cartoonish for very many years. When things like that started happening, these new characters started evolving, you saw some realness to it, where nowadays those cartoonish guys aren't even there.
Now, were most of the guys that had left WWE already left? Like Scott Hall, Razor Ramon?
They had left. Scott Hall, Razor Ramon were some of the first major. Now, over the years, guys have left each other's organizations. That wasn't anything new. But the way Scott Hall and Razor Ramon kind of went about it, the angle they came in with was an invasion type angle. And if you guys remember when the NWO was first created, they made it sound like Vince McMahon had sent them to WCW. And that was kind of the major thing where the big contract started, because that's when Eric Bischoff from WCW had taken over.
Hated him. I hated him.
And was given pretty much an open checkbook. Ted Turner's open checkbook. So he would sign these wrestlers, these ridiculous contracts. So.
Yeah, WCW just never caught on to me. I don't know. I watched a few pay-per-views here and there, but man, it was always just...
for me, the beginning NWO, the era of the NWO, to me, I couldn't stop watching. I would even sometimes watch that more than Raw as a kid. I'm telling you, just the action, not knowing who was going to show up.
Oh my God. All right, well, that's, to each his own. To me, it was always like people wrestling in a high school gym. That was WCW. I think, did they even travel around? Was it?
Oh yeah, they traveled.
I thought they just wrestled out of like Atlanta or something like that.
No, their house show was, I think, in Florida.
Okay.
Like their version of Superstars, if you will, was in Florida.
All right. So there you have it. Now, I think we're before we get to our number ones, we want to mention a couple honorable mentions. How about you go first, Eddie?
One of them, Stone Cold versus Bret the Hitman Hart, WrestleMania 13. Again, the impact it had on wrestling. Stone Cold was kind of this bad guy. People were starting to like him. That's kind of how I said that realism, where like it got to a point where WWE didn't really tell you who was good or bad. They tried, but the fans kind of chose who was the good guy, who was the bad guy.
Now, what year was this?
13. So, I don't know.
This is before Hitman and Shawn Michaels.
Yeah.
So Stone Cold was already doing his thing?
He was coming up. But what happened at the end of that match, Hitman put him in the sharpshooter, and Stone Cold, bloody face and everything, never tapped out. He passed out. So they awarded Hitman the match, which is great. But as Stone Cold was leaving the ring, standing ovation. People just cheered for him. And that's kind of where
Now, was the wrestling good, or was it like...
Oh, it was good. Hitman, as a wrestler, the Hitman is one of the best out there. Was one of the best out there. There's no doubt about that. And Stone Cold's always been a wrestler.
And always will be?
Always. Two more of my honorable mentions. being somewhat recent, although we're talking pre-2000 Attitude Era and before. A year ago, WrestleMania, Triple H versus Sting. Although when WWF and WCW merged, there was kind of that WCW ECW takeover. But to me, the true WCW start was Sting. When Sting finally came to the WWE now and fought Triple H, just to me what that meant. And I don't know if you've seen that match, but what happened during that match, DX came out, obviously supported Triple H, and then the NWO came out to support Sting. Triple H ended up winning, but the fact that those two icons went at it was
what year was that?
Last year.
That was last year. Okay. I was about to say I don't remember. DX is still around. See, I don't keep up with news.
I don't really either. I mean, WrestleMania is a big deal, so I'll try to catch it whenever I can. I don't think they're around right now, though.
Who came out from DX? The Badass Billy Gunn.
Yeah, Badass Billy Gunn, Road Dogg, X-Pac, and then NWO was Hogan, Hall, and Nash, and then towards the end of the match, Shawn Michaels came out for DX and kicked Sting, and well, that was the end of it.
Man, so this is pre-sex tape Hogan or whatever.
Oh yeah, a few months before. Or you know what? I think so. It may have been right before.
All right, well that's another topic for another day. But
sorry, just one last one. Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels, WrestleMania 25, as most people honor that as the greatest match ever. So just I'd give it at least some honorable mention. Not my favorite match ever, but definitely it was a great match, and people.
Not my favorite match either. That was in that weird time where I just kind of wasn't paying too much attention to wrestling. I think we were in a band at that time. I think I was spending most of my time playing music or something like that. But now at that time was Undertaker still evil? Was he like fire and brimstone and all that other ish? That was a good match. Well, I just had one honorable mention for me, which was which one is it?
You got two.
Oh, there it is. I'm sorry. So we got Stone Cold v. Shawn Michaels, WrestleMania 14, where Mike Tyson was the referee. And again, I thought that was a big changing hands of one icon to the next icon, because Stone Cold won the match, right? And then because he got punched by Mike Tyson. Shawn Michaels got punched by Mike Tyson.
Well, after the match, Shawn Michaels kind of provoked Mike Tyson, like, "Hey, what's going on?" The storyline leading up to that was that DX or Shawn Michaels had kind of persuaded Mike Tyson to join their side. So it looked like it was going to be a one-sided match with Shawn Michaels versus Austin, with Mike Tyson being on Shawn Michaels' side. In the end, Stone Cold pinned Michaels and Tyson counted. And Shawn was like, "What's going on?" Got punched by Mike Tyson.
Now, the Shawn Michaels, did he retire after that? Or
he retired a few years ago.
No, but he was out of wrestling for a while.
Yeah, I mean, he's in and out. Injuries, contract disputes.
Okay, but I thought he kind of left the planet for a bit after that match, or no? Am I thinking of something?
I don't remember. I vaguely remember.
All right, well, I remember that was a good match for sure. And then my other one was a famous match. I mean, golly, this is the era of awesome gimmicks, production wrestling, where it was unbelievable. It was just stunned, blew your mind. You couldn't believe what you were seeing, and I'm talking about Undertaker versus Yokozuna, Royal Rumble '94. What do you remember about that match?
Casket match.
Yeah, casket.
Caskets in the past were just your normal size casket, and the promos leading up to that was double deep, double wide, and when you saw the casket, you're like, "Oh crap, what is that?"
Yeah, because Yokozuna was 600 pounds or something like that. But now the crazy thing about this match, just want to talk about a little bit, was Undertaker lost. Right, he got buried. Right. It took about 10 wrestlers to bring him down or something like that to win the match. Because to win the match, you had to
just put your opponent in the casket.
In the casket and close the casket, yeah. I think. And yeah, I think it took about 5-6 wrestlers that helped Yokozuna beat up Undertaker. Finally got him in, closed the casket. They were pushing him out to bury him, I guess. And all of a sudden, the lights go out. The screen shows Undertaker inside the casket talking about something. He's like, "You'll never destroy the Undertaker," or whatever he would say. I will never rest in peace. And then all of a sudden, from above the screen was Undertaker. He just rose from the dead. It just blew my mind. I didn't know what to think about that. But that was our honorable mentions. And now let's get to our number one. I'll say my number one because we already mentioned it. And to me, the greatest match I ever saw, gimmicks, athletics, just what the hell just happened? I can't believe what I saw. Is he still alive? It was Undertaker v Mankind, Hell in the Cell 98. I mean, you can't say enough about that match. What I remember is, because Undertaker, he doesn't have that much skill wrestling. He's a big guy, great gimmick, and Mankind, I don't know, he had some skill, but he more just put his body on the line. I remember they both climbed up to the top of the cage, 25 feet in the air, wrestling up there, and he got Undertaker chokeslam Mick Foley through the goddamn cage onto the mat, and there was tacks down there as well. They got slammed onto tack. He had tacks all over his body, bleeding. And Mankind brought his own tacks into the ring, got slammed onto the ring, slammed through the Spanish announcer's table, of course. And
wouldn't have it any other way.
And yeah, I thought he died. Who would survive that? Who would do that? It was unbelievable. And so to me, that was number one and always will be.
To me, number one, I put Hulk Hogan versus the Ultimate Warrior. Though we already talked about it, the significance of that match was the passing of the torch. Now, there's been many passings of the torch, but when you consider how big of a star Hogan was in the 80s, how big the Ultimate Warrior had become in the late 80s, and thus the natural passing right there, and the significance of that match was just amazing.
Now, let me ask you, who were you going for?
Ultimate Warrior.
You're going for me too.
As big a fan as I was of Hogan, I don't know. I was a fan kind of by default. That's kind of who you know at first. I mean, my favorite wrestler all time is The Undertaker, but I was a Hogan fan. Then, when the Ultimate Warrior came out, that's who, the energy, the power, the speed, who didn't want to run down the street. I used to get shoelaces and tie them around my arms, trying to be like the Ultimate Warrior.
I remember trying to do the face paint. Like, sometimes you'd go to, a camp, and they would do the face paint, and, you got to do Ultimate Warrior. All the kids around it. I was going for Ultimate Warrior as well, because, he was the man at the time. Hogan was before my era. Yeah, he was great. He was fantastic. But he never wrestled on Superstars. No, I never saw him. And, he only came out for the pay-per-views, which I never saw. I never saw Saturday Night Main Event because it was too late for me. I was just a kid. Undertaker was the guy who was just coming up. The music, the rocking out. I mean, unbelievable. Just, his persona. So, he was ripped, pre-steroids that we knew about it. But did you know he was on steroids?
I mean, knowing what I know now, I can probably assume he was on steroids, yeah.
I guess. And, I think you said he was on steroids, but that was, that's a great number one pick. And
let us know what you think. You can even talk post-2000 WWE, WWF, any other organization. Let us know what you think, good or bad.
Yeah, let us know your top 5 in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to us. We're the Pocketman Show, or Pocket Horror Show. So, anyway, talk to you next time.